Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. This is going to be very quick, and if you have questions, please put them in the chat, and I hope to get to those by the end of the conversation here. Uh, Solo travel has been something I didn't intend to get into. If you saw part of my bio, I had traveled to Paris with a friend who's no longer a friend, who left me in Paris after 2 days. So I had a choice to make a very long time ago to stay in Paris by myself without a smartphone. These were early days, and figure it out. And from there, it turned out to be a fantastic opportunity for me in my life because I realized that I prefer to travel and discover more about the world and myself. So now, after she abandoned me, 50 countries later, I am still traveling. I'm still having fun. Well, not traveling now. As you know, the closest we've traveled is my wallpaper right now. This has been all I've been able to do for the past year. And I'm waiting for the corridors to be open to the UK. So that's a little bit about me. I have a career in finance and travel. So I've built out corporate travel programs as well as leveraging my personal travel to make sure that we can all do this the right way, because I've done it the wrong way for many times and have a lot of really, really funny, sad stories of me having meltdowns along the way. So I'm hoping to help people not melt down along the way. So with that, we're going to jump into this. It's going to be a little quick. I'm from Philadelphia. I talk quickly, fast. So where are we going to begin with solo travel? I think a lot of people in the past year with the pandemic have kind of reevaluated what they want to do with their lives and the adventures, how they spend their money, and what they choose to discover in the world. And part of that has been solo travel. People are deciding they're not going to wait for their husband, their wife, their partner, their friends, other people, their dog, whomever, to travel with them. They're looking to start to solo travel, and whether it's checking off boxes, you have a bucket list, people are starting to research what they can do now with their time. And it's very daunting. It can be overwhelming on where to begin. So what I like to tell people is, start at home. You start very small. Can you go out to eat by yourself? And this isn't, can you go eat at Panera? We can all eat at Panera by ourselves. This is, can you go to a restaurant, whether you sit at the bar, you sit by yourself, party of one? Are you okay with that? Nobody cares. You're hungry, they're hungry. Everybody's in a restaurant to eat. So can you do that? Can you feel comfortable doing that? Can you go to the movies, the theater? Where can you find points of you're comfortable doing this, you're happy with yourself, and you're not apologizing to anybody? Once you get to that comfort level, then you can start researching, where do you want to go? Why do you want to go? And what do you want to do? And those are hard conversations a lot of times. Have you always wanted to go to Paris? That's great. That's a starting point. Have you always wanted to go hiking out in the national parks? Do you want to go on a bike ride, cooking trip? Start going through like what will bring you joy. Not what other people want, but what will bring you joy when you discover the world. And I think from my travels, what brings me joy is knowing that there's so many people to meet around the world, hear their stories, learn their culture, and find out where we have commonalities and then learn about our differences. And I really think that that's helped me be better in my life, in my relationships, and also at work. So once you decide, what's your why, where do you want to go, you have to start thinking, are you okay by yourself, totally alone? Or do you want to join a group so that you have people within so many days where you do everything together? Or do you want to, if you want to do a theme tour and you want to do, other ways to travel, cruises are great as well. They're just starting up. So cruises might be a 2022 option for you. Look at that. And that's another way to start in baby steps. If you know that you need people around you to talk to feel comfortable with, to mitigate your risk, you might want to look at a group tour. And then you have a lot of group tours to look at a lot of different price points. And because it's a tour, it's based on double occupancy. So you'll have to pay twice as much. That's something that prevents a lot of people from traveling, is the cost. I do a lot, most of the travel I do is do-it-yourself travel. I plan it. I do a lot of day tours, group tours within the same day. bike tours, walking tours, food tours. And then some days I don't talk to a soul. I need days off for me. So when you do it yourself, you can kind of, play with your calendar and then give yourself some time off to decide, where are you that day? How are you feeling? Do you need people? Do you not need people? So there's a lot of things to go into, and we haven't booked any tickets yet. And we haven't even looked at our next thing, which is, understand now what your what ifs are. I've had delayed flights. I've had missing luggage, which thankfully I landed in a country that has plus size clothing for women and big size shoes. Otherwise, I would have been stuck in wearing the same clothes for a few too many days in Australia. So what do you do if your bag goes missing? What if you miss your flight? You miss your connection? You get ill. Now we have to worry about borders closing and possibly being stuck somewhere. Those are a lot of what ifs we have to play with. Those, even for myself, are becoming a little tricky in terms of, what would I do if? Do I have enough time off, or can I afford to be stuck in another country? Well, it sounds lovely, and Italy is lovely. I don't know that I could, afford to stay there for a few months if the border were to close. So then you have to look at your budgets. And I always say add at least 20% extra. And here's why. I've had friends who've gone to Sydney, Australia, big trip for them, dream trip, bucket trip. My friend came home and said she wished she had done this. She wished she had done the bridge climb, but she didn't because of the cost at the time. Looking back, she wishes she could have spent the $200. So you always want to have that place where, will I be back? Do I really want to do this? And what if I never have a chance to do this again? And that's where the budget comes in. And when you have that little cushion, it really helps you decide, I can afford this. I've worked really hard for this trip. And this is what will bring me joy. And I keep going back to what will bring me joy, because I only want to do things now that make me happy, that make me laugh, that bring me joy, or involve chocolate and wine. Those are the things in my happy place. In terms of where you're going, and understanding, you're going to listen to people. They hate this city. They love that city. Try to kind of, it's hard to, but if you can, kind of push that aside and try to figure out if you can make your own assessment. Paris is one. I love it. I've had a lot of bad things there, but I still love it. But people will hate it because they think it's supposed to be the most romantic city in the world. And I've actually had romantic experiences waiting for a ferry in Washington State. So it really does depend on who you are, what your expectations are for yourself, for the destination, and for all the people you interact with. And then lastly, I've used a travel agent many times, especially I spent a month in Africa. I used a destination specialist. Nikki was with Rhino Africa in Cape Town. So I used somebody that I didn't know. I had met her at the New York Times travel show. She put together an itinerary for me, and it was fantastic. It gave me so many of these great experiences that weren't really marketed to Americans. I stayed in a lot of local properties that I've never seen in American brochures. So that's a destination specialist. If you want to go to the Galapagos, there's a destination specialist that knows what ship, boat is sailing, where they go, how many people are on there. That's when you, in some cases, pay for an agent. Sometimes they'll have a fee, usually about $200. Nikki didn't. She made enough on the commission. You also look, can you book it on your own? And again, you've got to go back to the what ifs. What if your flight is canceled? If you're overseas, does your phone plan allow you to be on the internet to reschedule your airfare, your flight? So you have to go through, book it on your own, use a travel agent, or use a destination travel agent. So there's 3 different options there. So it's a lot of choices and a lot of research before you even book your ticket. And I know a lot of you are saying, get on to book your ticket. And I'm getting there. So here's the new travel world. I don't know if you can see Fiona. She's, the hairy cow or hairy coo in Scotland. She was fun. We got to feed her. She likes carrots. Now you're looking at quarantine. If you're going to the UK right now, which is closed, if you did go, there's a quarantine at your own cost. Vaccination, COVID vaccinations and testing, those are costly. Well, the vaccination's free. The testing is costly, and some countries and destinations are still requiring a PCR test, even if you are vaccinated. So you have to add those costs in. Again, I talked about the travel agent. For anybody that's on Medicare, you definitely have to see what you can do if you're going outside the US, as Medicare doesn't cover that. So when I travel with my mom, I will buy additional travel insurance that has a medical clause so that we can make sure if she were to get sick or trip on cobblestones or gosh, all kinds of things that happen when you're traveling. You definitely have to look at travel insurance and medical. Again, the what if time, quarantine, and then where you're going, do they have adequate medical facilities? And would you get a priority if you're there? So if you were sick in, say, the UK, they have a lot of hospitals, they have a lot of medical facilities versus, on Easter Island where I was, I don't remember if they had more than a doctor available or when they were there. So if you were to get sick or there is another outbreak, what happens? Will the hospital or facility allow you in? What are your options at that point? Medical travel insurance will help there, as well as your US healthcare may have an international clause. And I've shared this in the resources, which everybody will get after this. The US Department of State for US folks, Smart Travel Enrollment. What you do there is you enroll your trip online with the State Department. You'll then get texts or emails, depending on where you are and what you've opted into, that will tell you if there's any kind of unrest happening, if there's any kind of news updates you need to be aware of. And then the US Embassy in that particular area will know that you're there. Helpful if there has to be any kind of emergencies or need. You'll have somebody to be able to reference, and they'll also know what your itinerary looks like. That's free to use. I've used it when I was in Africa and received emails when there was protests in Botswana. I've used it in South America, got a lot of updates from the embassy in Santiago, Chile. So that's a really nice free feature of the US Department of State. Okay, again, we're going to talk, why do you want to travel? Here's a whole bunch of ideas, right? I've gone on a film festival. I met a few people. One of my friends is actually on this Zoom today. We met in Avignon, France, on a film festival tour. And since then, we've traveled to many film festivals around the world. That was the reason I wanted to travel. That was what was going to make me happy, is watching foreign films in foreign destinations. You might have other ideas, whether it's cooking or kayaking. I'm not very good at kayaking. I keep trying it. I'm still not good, so I'm not going to learn to surf anytime soon. A lot of reasons to travel. It's not just go to Philadelphia, look at the Liberty Bell. There's a lot of other reasons that you can travel. And right now, I think it's really important that people look at resetting their mind, body, and spirit, and travel can help you do that. Here we go. This is what everybody wants. Airfare is very expensive. We all know this. And airfare is changing every day. Every time you log in, every time you're looking for airfare on your phone or on your computer, make sure you're clearing your cookies and your cache when you're looking for airfare. You might find one price on your phone, another price on your laptop. And I always try to tell people, when you see the lowest price in your budget, buy the ticket. Because there's only so many tickets in that price bucket. When that bucket is empty, the higher price bucket is now open, and it keeps going like that. So you want to find the ticket that is what you can afford and what fits your itinerary. And if you're not sure about it, especially if you have some connections, do some research, ask, you can always send me a note, or ask a travel agent to help you. They can give you a comparison also. So these are a lot. I think most of us would understand Google Flights. That's a great resource. Then you can call your travel agent, or you can book directly with the links they give you. Secret Flying is a special and mistake fare. So it's a little risky there for the mistake fares, which are when an airline loads a ticket with the wrong pricing. Some airlines will say, we'll honor this for this population, but you all kind of knew it was a mistake. $300 business class to Asia we all know that's a mistake, but sometimes the airlines will honor it. But you have to act fast on secret flying because those are very limited time offers. There's a bunch of others here: Flight Deal, Holiday Pirates, Scotch Cheap Flights. If you have points and you're looking for award tickets, you want to look at Expert Flyer. You can get a few free queries, and then they also have a paid portion. So when I was planning a round the world trip, which was 7 airlines I used to get from Philadelphia to Australia, and then back by via Bangkok and Paris to come home. So around the world, 7 airlines, 7 different flights, $300 in tax for that whole ticket. I used Expert Flyer and I spent about 12 hours putting that ticket together, trying to map out where I could get all of the free flights. So that's a really great resource. And then the mega search sites, you'll see a lot of travel are owned by the same company. So the Expedias and the Booking.com, they own a bunch of different travel brands under their umbrella. So sometimes, you don't have to go to these 5 sites if they're all owned by Expedia. And you'll see here, Momondo is part of Kayak, which is owned by Booking. So they have a lot of different marketing. Similar to Marriott, Marriott owns about 30 different hotel brands now. So the airfare search options are similar. Let's see any questions yet. Okay. Another big expense for solo travel is lodging. And as Americans, everything on the large chain is what we normally get marketed from and to, and that's usually what we'll default to search. A lot of times they're more expensive. Not all the time, but a lot of times. On the right, the interesting alternatives are different boutique properties, which usually have under 200 rooms, and specific local properties. So the Hoxton is out of the UK. They're now here in New York City, which is great. Roommate is also out of Europe, has a New York property. Pod and Yotel are very small, those capsule type hotels. Great for one person. Might not fit my luggage, but still, you might have to navigate between you and your luggage in your room. But great options for smaller rooms. If you're not going to be in the room much, it shouldn't really matter. But there are different options to look at their websites instead of always defaulting to a Marriott in any certain city. I have others. Club Quarters is a business-only hotel. You have to be a member of a business client, but they do sell through Expedia. And you can find a lot of great deals. It's very no frills. It's not high service, but it's self-service. And then you can see some university rooms. Generator is a hostel. It's a boutique hostel, not always as cheap as one might think. So in Venice, Italy, I would go to Generator for a hostel. The room was much more expensive than what I'm showing here. This was my Airbnb flat on the canals of Venice, and it was about $150 a night. I talked about the different tour operators and what it'll be a little bit more expensive. You'll pay twice as much. Here's a list of those. G as in George Adventures is a popular site. They do have solo travel trips. They're also open to people of all ages, and they have a product for people, I think it's under 35 possibly as well. REI has women's tours, women's only tours, which is great. And you can buy their products in store. These others are not as well known. They're also very expensive and they skew toward luxury. And then when you're traveling, again, I talked about this single supplement. So I'll give you an example. You'll see here, these are my tents in Botswana and Zimbabwe. The top one was actually a luxury tent because it was on stilts and had its own bathroom outside with a bucket shower, which was a very outside of my comfort zone opportunity. Had to be talked into that one. The one below is also a tent, which had its own pool, and I had a private pool. I had an outdoor shower. I had a deck. The indoor was luxury. So 2 different tents in Africa. And my trip, if I had gone with a tour operator, would have been, I think, $10,000 for, I want to say 10 days. And I spent $10,000 for a month. So on my own, putting it together, working with the travel agent in Cape Town. So I didn't have to pay the Cape Town plus the distributor plus the US prices. So by the time it gets to the US, there's a lot of intermediaries. So sometimes if you can work directly in country and find somebody to recommend, you can often save a lot of money.
Suzanne, you do actually have a number of questions. Do you want me to address them or wait till the end? I noticed you said you didn't see any, but they're here.
Oh, okay. Okay, good.
Would you like me to run through
Yeah,
for you?
go ahead, because everybody the activities is kind of almost my last slide anyway.
Okay, so all right, first of all, Stephanie loves solo travel from Facebook. I'm just going to read them out loud. Connie, good with going to places solo where I'm comfortable with my surroundings, but I want to be more adventurous. Go Connie.
Yes.
Chantel, I prefer traveling solo because I get to go to places I want to go to. Makes
Absolutely.
sense. Okay, Kathy, what holds me back right now besides being a widow is traveling solo at 61. I feel a bit more concerned about older and non-wiser.
Okay. So can I answer a few of those?
Yes,
So
go.
to add adventure, a bike tour, a food tour, look at right here, Context Travels, Devour Barcelona. You can do a little bit more adventure in the city. And then also a funny one is, well, not funny, but funny to me, Airbnb experiences. I did this in New York, and a photographer did a Brooklyn walking tour for 4 hours for $30. So there are a lot of ways to be adventurous, whether it's in food, whether you are eating different food, or you decide you want to do a sport adventure. So there's lots of ways to do that and still be safe because you're with a group and they know you're supposed to be there. In terms of 61 and a widow, I'm sorry for your loss. I've met a lot of widows and widowers in my travels. Sometimes they start on cruises. So Norwegian Cruise Line, for example, has solo cabins, and they also have a tour director that puts together dining for the group and activities, and then you can choose to participate or do stuff on your own. So that's a nice way to kind of dip your toe into it because you're within a contained group, within a larger group, and then you can join different tours. I think a lot of times the women only tour groups, they're very expensive. And I don't know about you all, but I really don't have $10,000 to give somebody to go on a tour just because we're all women or all of a certain age. If you do, that's great. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with them. They're just too expensive for me. Any other questions?
Yes, a few, actually.
Okay.
Okay, this is, I think, is a common one from Daphne. My fears surround safety. What precautions should you take to make sure you're safe?
That's a great question. So I look at the country and I try to see if it is safe for women, and also LGBTQ and a whole bunch of other issues when we're traveling, to see how they interact with the world. I have in the resources a link to security. I don't arrive at night. I've done that before. That didn't work out for me. So if I have a flight that arrives at night, I talk to the hotel. I have them arrange the pickup at the airport for me. So there's a guy or a woman with a sign with my name, and the hotel's waiting for me. So I've done that in Lima, Peru, because my flight came in at midnight and I didn't want to hail a taxi. I didn't want to have to navigate an airport that late. So I talked to the hotel, and that's where I say you'll budget for safety. You always add a budget in there. So the hotel knew I was coming and I could trust who they were sending to me. So I don't arrive at night. I arrived late at an Airbnb in Malta. There's a funny story on my blog about this. The property was gross. I mean, we didn't realize it until the morning. We were exhausted from a day of traveling. And in the morning, we got to walk around. It was gross. And 2 days later, I was in the ER with a fractured foot because there was a loose step, and my partner had mysterious bug bites that needed doctor's attention. So don't arrive at night. Map out where you're going. Also, make sure somebody at home knows where you are at all times. And then personally, I don't go out to like a bar by myself at night. That's a personal choice. I've had a few too many people follow me home or follow me back to a hotel from some places. So I try not to do that. So for me, it's making sure don't arrive at night. And if you do, make sure the hotel knows you're coming and sends a car for you, and you'll pay for that. You just have to. Also, when you're walking at night, make sure you have a flashlight with you, and make sure you have the name of your hotel in a card so you know where you're going. And if you feel uncomfortable, go into a hotel or a store. I've had to do that more than once and ask them to call a taxi for me. And then lastly, I haven't been to certain countries yet. I have had friends who have told me, it's not women friendly. So there are a few countries, if I decide to go there, I might use a tour or some sort of a theme tour trip that will kind of minimize the risk to me being by myself. I don't tell anybody I'm traveling by myself. I used to carry pictures of my nieces because people would ask me about my children, my husband, and then I don't post on social media until after I've left the hotel or the city. So I don't check in until after I've left. So hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you. You have some more. You ready for a few more?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so Cynthia was offering the idea of London for Kathy to get started because there's direct flight, same language. Melissa from Facebook, is there some type of insurance you could recommend if you need medical treatment while traveling?
That's a great question. And that's a tough one because I don't know people's medical situations. I don't know what your insurance covers or doesn't cover. I use my travel agent, actually. I get the travel insurance through her, and she's able to price that out for me. Again, that's going to be, if you look at Insure My Trip, you'll have a lot of options to cover, and you can kind of pick and choose. Also in the resources, there's a story about my friend who travels with lupus. So she talks about all the different precautions she has to take, as well as understanding the medical facilities when she's traveling. So again, this is going to be very hard to say, get this insurance, because I don't know your underlying insurance coverage by your credit card, as well as any additional you might buy from the airline direct, or what others you might buy from a cruise ship. And London is a great idea for your first trip abroad. There's a lot to do. It's one of my favorite cities. I usually go 3 times a year for the last 20 years. I'm missing it like crazy right now. But London is a fantastic city to start your trip off. So thanks for that suggestion.
Okay, Courtney, any additional or different identification you should bring when you're traveling solo?
It's a good question. I always just carry my passport. I keep a copy of my passport in my email drafts folder so that if I needed to get it from anywhere in the world, it's not been emailed to me because, again, privacy concerns there, but it's in my drafts folder. So I don't carry my passport with me. I usually keep it in a hotel safe or in some other places I might hide it. But I do take a picture. So if I'm traveling and they need a copy, or they need to see the number for VAT forms, if you're doing reclaim, if you've done a lot of shopping and there's a tax refund, usually you can show it in that way. And then, like I said, I have pictures of my nieces for when people want to ask me about my kids, or if I don't wear a ring for a husband. The whole husband thing is a bit annoying to me, but that's all I do. The identification. I have my U.S. Driver's license as well.
Okay, actually, it's really helpful, the thought to put it in your draft instead of emailing it to yourself. You don't really think about that. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Any agencies that specialize in experiential travel, from Melissa?
Ooh, experiential travel. That's a big, vast question. There's a lot, actually. G Adventures, again, that was listed, as well as, let's go back. REI, I mean, these are going to be experiences that you have. REI has, like I said, I think they have a kayak tour in the San Juan Islands in Washington State. In terms of experiential food or wine, there's a lot of those vendors. If you send me an email after, or contact me on any of my socials, I'm happy to give you a few ideas. I just need a little bit more detail in terms of what you consider experiential. Because believe me, my food is so limited. I could eat like something and I'm like, wow, that's adventurous. And my friends laugh at me and say, the world's been eating that forever.
A couple of people are asking about rail travel.
Yeah, rail travel, easy to do in Italy. I spent a month in Italy and I used the trains between cities, easy to do. I did not use the European Rail Pass, and here's why. I didn't know how many days in advance where I wanted to go and when I wanted to go. You're limited in terms of having to make advance reservations, and also limited in terms of when those trains are traveling, because obviously not during peak times. Um, Rail Pass can be good if you already know you want to go from here to there and you're doing multi-country. Can be a good idea. Amtrak just has a promotion. I think whatever day is today, you have a few more days. They have a rail pass that's going cross country. You can use it for 30 days. I think it's $300. It's pretty interesting. If you have the next 30 days to travel by Amtrak, you can see a lot of the US right now. But train travel in Europe is very easy. Train travel, I've done it in New Zealand, also very easy, not a lot of places to go. You kind of go down and you go across. And bus travel. Surprisingly, there's a lot of different bus travel options that are reliable, whether it's Megabus, Bolt Bus, or different bus names in Europe.
Okay, I'm trying to grab these together because we have a lot going on here.
Yeah.
What is a capsule hotel? Can you explain that?
Yeah, so in Japan, the capsule hotel basically fits you. It's not a coffin, but it basically fits you, and you have a storage facility for your luggage. So you basically have a bed, it's stuck in what looks like a capsule. I refer to the Yotel as a capsule hotel. That's probably the wrong thing to say, but it's a very small, these Yotel hotels, they're small. I think they're the size of a cruise ship cabin, is about 100 square feet. So you might have to lift up your bed to put your luggage underneath. You'll have a stand-up shower. So if you're traveling and need a bathtub, you're not going to usually have that. So that's kind of what I consider a capsule hotel. It's just one of the smaller options out there.
Okay, I'm trying to combine this together here.
Sure.
I usually book Airbnb, but now the prices are going up. Is it best to book with an Airbnb or a hotel?
Great question. Airbnb's cleaning and administration fees are definitely expensive. And that's when I was saying, even a hostel, when you start looking at all the fees that are involved and added in, it becomes more than a hotel. And you have to look at what you need. So when I stayed in Venice, I wanted to have a kitchen, right? And I was paying a little extra for that kitchen and to have that view. In terms of, hotel, if you don't want to cook and you just want the security of a hotel, room service of a hotel, nicer thread count, and bathtubs and spa experiences, then stay at a hotel, get the points. It's usually centrally located. So again, for safety, I didn't bring this up, but for safety, I stay in centrally located hotels. I don't like to stay too far from the city center, because then you have to walk a lot. You're by yourself. You might have to take transit in the morning or late at night. So a centrally located hotel is great, and you can often find a lot of last minute deals.
Okay, and for Michelle, are these, I guess we had listed traveling groups. I've been looking for groups to travel with. I know EA Adventures, but that's for youth and I'm 30.
Yeah. So Contiki Tours is well known. They go up to 35. They do bus tours in terms of travel and multi-day. Unfortunately, there are a lot of companies have closed because of COVID, smaller companies. If you send me again a note, I'm happy to kind of give you some recommendations, because I, again, like to use ones that are located in the destination, because they can give you an idea more so than some of these global ones.
Okay, and for someone, oh, okay, they have Virgin Voyages, a new cruise line that has solo travelers also, is a recommendation from Jen. Thank you, Jen.
Yeah, I'm
And
really excited for that. Most of the cruise folks I know are really excited to Virgin's a great travel brand, and they have some really interesting things that they're updating on cruises. So we're excited to see that.
and this may circle back to London, but I'll let you answer. What country is the first one to go to for first timers who have never traveled outside of the United States?
Well, right now, Australia, New Zealand are kind of closed. So yes, it is London. And I would say that because there's so much to do, whether you just want to look at all the highlights with the Tower of London and Buckingham Palace and Westminster Abbey, go outside of the city, where if you're going to Stonehenge or going down to Brighton for the beach. You can also go out of Southampton for cruises. What I like to do each year, and I haven't been able to, is we like to take the New York to London cruise around April when all the cruise ships are moving over to Europe. And it's usually about $500 for a 7 to 10 night cruise. Fully all in, you need a friend for that. But even the solo cabins are pretty cheap. And that's another way to come into London is through Southampton. London walks, I have here, London walks.com is about, I think it's £12 now. They do daily walks. They have about 10 of them a day. So in London, there's lots to do. I've been going there. That was my first trip in 1988 on TWA out of New York. I went there over Thanksgiving, and every year I've been going back. I still find lots of fun things to do. I have a lot of content on London on my blog. I've taken my then 11-year-old niece and I've taken my 75-year-old mother, different trips each time. Sometimes it's good to be a solo travel and you want to run away, but when you're with your mom, it's a little tough to leave her.
Okay, we have some advice from Cynthia. It's actually good. I keep a copy of my passport, birth certificate, immunization record on a cloud account so I can access it if I lose everything and the embassy needs to help me. So that was just a suggestion.
That's great.
And Michelle, you have a few comments at the end, but I'm not sure if Suzanne addressed them all. If not, okay, here we go. Is London kid friendly? I have an 8-year-old, but if we missed your other questions, just go ahead and drop them in the chat again and raise your hand and I'll.
Yep. Yeah, London's great for kids. I took my 11-year-old niece. She wanted to eat and shop, but there's the museum. There's the Postal Museum, which is great. The London Transit Museum. I think I had more fun than she did. There's a lot of things that are specific to children. So London has boat tours, or you can just jump on the River Line, which is part of your transit card, which is cheaper. You can also take the kids on a Paddington tour. I loved Harry Potter. I mean, we were there for the whole 3 hours, and my niece and I had a great time at the Harry Potter experience. So there's a lot to do in London for kids. It just depends on what your child likes. In terms of food, my niece decided she needed to be a foodie when I was paying, but when her mother pays, it's a whole different story. So we had burgers. I managed to get her to eat some burgers in London, which are actually pretty good. But there's a lot of takeaway food in London for kids. And plus there's some outdoor movie theaters, and there are pop-ups as well for food and drinks.
Okay, I think we've reached the end of the questions for now. So
great. They were great questions. Thank you, everybody. If you have any more, pop them in the box. This kind of, I think, my last slide. You know, if you're going on activities, TripAdvisor and Viator, and when you sign up with Viator, you get a coupon for, I think it's 10% off. So if you are grouping your tours, put them all together and buy it once, get your discount. If you're going with a friend or you're in a group, you guys can sign up with another email and get another discount. I also try to look and book directly. So if Viator says it's Bob and Jen's food tour, I usually like to go to Bob and Jen's website and book direct so they don't have to pay the fees. Right now, travel has been decimated, and anything I can do to support small businesses and tour guides, I'd rather do that. No offense if anybody's here from one of these bigger companies. But I have a private tour guide in the Amalfi Coast who hasn't worked in, you know, these 15 months. So it's really important to me that we help people get back on their feet. Context travel, small groups. Took a tour with an art historian of the Musée d'Orsay in Paris. There were only 6 of us on the tour. She and I were fighting about some of the impressionist art. So you can, again, you make that tour what you want it to be. So I'm not the art historian, but I know what I like and I know what she didn't like. Devour is food tours in Barcelona, Madrid. It's a couple other cities as well. My friend is vegan, so they made an accommodation for her. I'm lactose intolerant, so it's the first time I had cheese in forever because they were giving me goat's milk and sheep's milk cheeses. So that was nice. Walks of Italy, I talked about Airbnb. If you do a free walking tour, again, it's tip-based. I've been in London I love their street tours, their street art tours. I've seen people give $5 for a 2-hour tour and people give 20. I think $5 is not enough, to be quite honest. I usually give at least, 20 for that type of a tour, because if I did it with a tour group, they're charging 40 to 50. So just be cognizant, if you are choosing to do those tours, that you help give people, that's their wages. And some people don't tip at all. So I know it's called a tip, but to be quite honest, it's their wages. And then open table. People don't use this, but there's actually a feature. You can turn your points into gift cards for Amazon, which I like. And then I use that to buy things I need for my trip. So I use Open Table to book my reservations. And if I'm going to a city that has a popular dinner, I'll go there at lunchtime, because you can get it, it's usually cheaper, easier to get seated, and you can still enjoy a lot of the great food that the companies are known for. Groupon, I didn't put it in there, but it's on the free resources. We'll have a list of all the travel apps that I recommend, that I use, that I love, and that I've talked about extensively in different media outlets. So don't think I'm missing the apps. You'll be getting that in a separate email, or yes, in a separate email. And that's it. So I have time for Q&A, and I'm over the half hour, but I thank everybody for hanging out here. Are there more questions, Shelley?
There are a few more popping up, it looks like. Is it best to book with a travel agent?
So yeah, this depends. A travel agent makes commission from what they sell you. It's usually about 10%. So if they sell you a hotel for $200, their commission is $20 for the company. And then by the time you're done, they probably get $10 out of that. That's how they make their money. And then a lot of times they'll charge you. So my travel agent charges me $35 to book an airline ticket, because she makes no money otherwise. You have to find somebody you trust. And for example, my travel agent here in Philadelphia, Edith, I use her always for flights to Seattle, because those flights get canceled, and she'll just send me a note and say, your flight was canceled. I rebooked you. Here's where you're going. Here's the time. Here's all the new stuff. That's great. It's worth more than $35. She's also saved me when the channel closed in Paris, and I had to fly Paris to London and then get stuck there for a few days. So travel agents can be great. If I'm flying from Philadelphia to Orlando, I'm booking online with American. So it all comes down to how complicated is your itinerary, how much work do you want to do. So again, with Edith, I send her a note, Paris, these are the dates, whatever. She sends me back my options. She knows what I like. And then I'll just say, yes, book it. It's $35 to $50. That was great. She saved me all the time in the research. So a lot of this goes back to your time. Like my award ticket took 18 hours to research. There's actually services that charge $150, and they'll figure out how to best use your points. They'll find the award tickets for you. And if they don't charge you. So again, it goes back to, what is your time? How much are you willing to invest, and the cost?
Well, a number of people are commenting how much they love this, by the way. And
Thank you.
Michelle said she followed you on Instagram. So obviously we want to always support women in their businesses. So please follow Suzanne at Phila, Phila, Travel Girl, on all the different platforms. And I'm going to thank you all for stopping in Girls Night Live and spending the afternoon with us. And we certainly hope you come back with us and see us again tomorrow.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.